Hey guys, here we are again bringing a new saga to the channel. This time we're bringing the saga about the origin of Zeno. Have you ever wondered how Zeno was born or even how the universes were created? Because in this saga, you will have all the answers you're looking for. But first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, to like the video and give your feedback after you finish watching. Having said all that, turn off the bedroom lights, grab your lunch and enjoy the video. In the beginning of everything, before the creation of the universes, there was nothing, only emptiness. It was a very unstable dimension and very rich in unknown magic. In that, there were two races that lived at war in the void in search of the Nexus. According to the leaders of the two races, the Nexus was the source of all knowledge and power in existence. Whoever drank from the source of the Nexus would have a complete notion of time and space, which no one alive until then would have the ability to understand. In the midst of this war, there were two friends who, even though they were of different races, managed to be friends. Their name was Ozem and Zalama. Zalama was a great general of the Bakujin army. However, Zalama detested the wars against the Ramujins, as he considered this foolish war for power to be in vain, and therefore Zalama abandoned the war in the middle of it. His king was going to sentence him for deserting the war, but before Zalama was executed for good, someone appeared and saved him from death by eliminating all the soldiers who were at the place of execution. It was a Ramujim named Ozem who freed Zalama and took him to his home. Halfway through, Zalama collapsed from the wounds from the torture he had suffered while awaiting execution. After a while passed out, Zalama woke up not knowing where he was. Looking at the side, Zalama came to the conclusion that he was in Ozem's house. That is, he was in enemy territory. Zalama tried to get up but could barely do that due to his injuries. While trying to get up, a Ramujin woman appeared. The Ramujin woman looked at Zalama and said, "Wait, don't get up. Your injuries could get worse. Come on, lie down. I'll tend to your wounds," said the woman while Zalama went back to bed completely confused and suspicious. A slightly nervous Zalama said, "No, I have to go. I'm not welcome here." Zalama explained to Ramujin, who was cleaning and bandaging his wounds. Suddenly Ozem appeared, who responded to Zalama saying, "You are wrong. You are very welcome here. Eat this when you feel hungry," said Ozem, putting a bowl of soup next to Zalama. The Ramujin woman was Izada, wife of Ozem, who after finishing Zalama's dressings left. Bakujin sees the soup and starts to eat quickly because he was starving, and seeing this Ozem laughs a little. Ozem says, "She is very beautiful, isn't she? She's pregnant with our first child, Zeno. But well, let's get down to business. I know you and I know you don't want war. Believe me, neither do I. I am mounting a rebellion that will unite Bakujins and Ramujins with one purpose. We want to destroy the Nexus." Ozem explained, leaving Zalama impressed. Zalama said, "But wait, destroying the Nexus is a bad decision. It is indeed a very dangerous power in the wrong hands, but we can use it for the good of both races," said Zalama, suggesting a better idea. Ozem is impressed with Zalama's words and replies, "Yes, yes, yes. This idea is great. We could help a lot of people and put an end to wars for good. With my pregnant wife, people to shelter and protect, all of this is stressful, but it's so worth it. I feel that with you by my side we can win," Ozem said, laughing nervously. Zalama claimed, saying, "I'll help you with that," said Zalama, shaking Ozem's hand, and from there a powerful alliance would emerge. Days passed and the alliance of rebels, Bakujins and Ramujins grew even more. Zalama and Ozem together were born leaders and were managing to change the course of the war to their side. After a few days, Zalama and Ozem discovered the location of the Nexus and decided to go there to solve the whole war once and for all. But when they got there, everything was just a trap, as the coordinates passed to Zalama and Ozem were false, and it was all a plan by the kings of both races to ambush Zalama and Ozem. Seeing that situation, Ozem despaired, and while he drew his sword, Ozama said to Zalama, "We have nothing to do. We're going to have to fight," Ozem exclaimed, attacking King Ramujin, who was holding his weapon. Zalama was a little hesitant, but after thinking a little he saw that there was no alternative but to fight for the good of the two warrior races, and he starts the fight with his sword in hand and says, "We don't need to do that. You know that," says Zalama when hitting the sword against Bakujin's leader's sword. Ozem, Zalama's only ally, retorts by saying, "Stop wasting energy trying to convince these greedy fools. Both of them are only here because they want to kill us. They will soon return to genocide," said Ozem, blocking the attack of King of Ramujin. The king of the Bakujins laughs in an evil and mocking way and looks at Zalama and says, "You are nothing but a dirty traitor. You will die together with your dreams," exclaimed the king of Bakujins, hitting Zalama's belly with a glancing blow. Ozem looks at Zalama in trouble and warns him, saying, "Focus on the battle and defeat them quickly before reinforcements arrive." Ozem exclaimed while Zalama nodded in agreement. Zalama and Ozem exchange offensive attacks against their opponents, but no one has yet taken a really powerful hit. Ozem then says, "Zalama, cover me." Ozem strikes deeply into Zalama's opponent, but the person responsible for leading the warrior race of the Ramujins goes after Ozem until Zalama removes him with a blow. Zalama laughs and says, "A great plan, I should say," exclaims Zalama after hitting his opponent. Zalama continues, "But now that we've changed opponents, we have to be careful, because we don't know his strategies," alerted Zalama to Ozem. The king of the Ramujins responds by saying, "Nothing you two insects can do can defeat us. You are just bugs in our path. Disappear," shouted the king of the Ramujins, hitting the opponent with such a powerful blow that he ripped off Zalama's left arm, who fell to the ground badly injured. In parallel to this, Ozem looks at his opponent and says, "I spent years of my life dueling against exemplary beings of their race, and I know very well how they act." Ozem spoke while defending the Bakujin leader's attacks. Thanks to the genetics of his race, Zalama manages to regenerate his arm, but he is still quite injured. After Zalama listens to what his friend said, he just agrees and says, "You're right," exclaims Zalama, speaks while attacking the opponent with incessant blows. Zalama warns Ozem, saying, "They are the heads of our races. Do not underestimate them, because there is still something really strange around here," said Zalama, slightly intrigued as he and Ozem get the better of it during the fight. After almost hours of fighting, the warriors were quite tired already, and none of the enemies had fallen. Ozem was side by side with Zalama, who, just as Ozem was very injured, the kings of their races were also very exhausted, and it was impossible to say who would be the winner of that battle. Ozem then decides to raise his sword again and advance against the two kings, who are expecting an attack from the opponents. However, suddenly something shakes the environment around and causes a huge concern to the warriors who are present there. At the same time, everyone noticed a sphere appearing in the center of the place. That was the Nexus, which had been awakened by the warriors' fight and was now there to cause big trouble. The king of the Ramujin says, "It can't be. It's magnificent," said King Ramujin, admiring the Nexus sphere and feeling its immense power. Zalama is completely paralyzed with fear and turns around saying, "We finally did it. We managed to find the Nexus," said Zalama, while Ozem was very serious. Ozem questioned Zalama, saying, "Or was it the Nexus that found us?" said Ozem, completely nervous and fearing the worst. In the last episode of the saga, we see how it was in the beginning. Before creation, there were only two races that battled each other to see who would get the Nexus, which is an unimaginable source of absolute power. The Ramujins are a race in which Zeno and his family are a part. The Bakujins are an ancestral race of the Namekians and can also be known as the Golden Namekians. So in the midst of the War of the Races, Ozem and Zalama appeared. Two warriors of rival races who have banded together with the goal of using the Nexus to end the war once and for all. So both warriors warred against the king of the two races, when suddenly the Nexus appeared in the middle of the battle. So turn off the lights in your room and grab your lunch, because today's episode is starting. The king of the Ramujins turns to the Nexus admiringly and says, "Finally, I have the power to conquer everything. The power in the palm of my hands," exclaimed King Ramujin maliciously as he watched the Nexus sphere. But the king of the Bakujin interrupts him and then says, "You fool, and who said you're going to keep the power of the Nexus? You will never touch that power. Just me. Me," shouted King Bakujin, trying to catch the sphere. But as soon as he approached, the sphere reacted and began to shine brightly, and a female voice echoed through the place. The sweet voice said, "I don't see good intentions in you, which means you are not worthy," said the Nexus sphere. After saying that, the sphere eliminated the two kings at the same time, so that they simply disappeared as they were extinct from existence. Zalama and Ozem were admiring the power of the Nexus. The eyes of both warriors shone with delight, but they soon realized that they could be the next to be killed, and they knelt down helplessly before the Nexus. The Nexus floated up to the frightened warriors Zalama and Ozem and said softly, "I see bravery and good intentions in both of you, so I will deem you worthy of receiving a wish each," said the Nexus, leaving the warriors impressed and very grateful to the compassion of the entity. Then Zalama and Ozem looked at each other and nodded their heads. Ozem said, "That's more than enough. We can think about what we're going to ask for since we have time and the kings have been defeated," said Ozem, turning to his ally. Zalama then said, "What if we ask for omnipotence and omniscience?" questioned Zalama to Ozem. Ozem disagrees. "We don't need this. Remember what the goal was, and don't let greed get the best of you. Zalama responds, but then all our goals would come true. After Zalama says that, Ozem puts his hand on Zalama's shoulder and says, I'm sure there's a simpler way to do this. Don't risk your dignity, Ozem said, leaving Zalama slightly frustrated. After much thought, Zalama and Ozem reached a conclusion that would be good and fair for all beings of the Bakujin and Ramujin warrior races. Zalama then says, I want to have a power that is enough to protect my people and the people that exist, exclaimed Zalama, determined. Then Ozem shouted, I want the two people to live in prosperity with each other, wished Ozem. The Nexus then said, If it is what you wish, it will be done, said the Nexus, disappearing, while a huge flash lit the vision of the warriors. Time passed after Ozem and Zalama's wishes, and over time the two races became accustomed to living in harmony and safety. Because of the wishes of the two brave warriors, both the Bakujins and the Ramujins managed to live in prosperity, and as time went by, new races derived from these two originals emerged and followed the same prosperous path of peace and harmony. Ozem, with his bravery and lucidity, was recognized as the newest leader of all races, but still maintained his strong and faithful friendship with Zalama, who helped him in his duty as leader, and protected innocent civilians from any evildoer that threatened peace. Among the people with the power he desired, Ozem's wife, who was previously pregnant, was now about to give birth to Ozem's first child. The woman apparently wasn't in so much pain, but was clearly bothered. Ozem stayed close by to give support, and Zalama stayed outside waiting and protecting Ozem's palace, since he was invited by his great and faithful friend Ozem. While waiting for him, Zalama became thoughtful and began to envy his friend, with whom he had battled for so long. As Ozem had a united family and had become the leader of all races, and in Zalama's view, Ozem had stayed with all merit. Even though Zalama, who was of great help, hardly gets credit for such a feat. In Zalama's opinion, he should be recognized as the hero as much as Ozem was, and should have as much authority and leadership spirit as Ozem has. Zalama then grumbles shortly, that wretch is having a son. And I'm waiting while Ozem wins all the applause of the population. Ozem prevented me from having absolute power because he feared my power. That's the truth. Ozem will pay, and I'll get what I deserve, even if I have to take everything Ozem has, Zalama whispered, thinking of a Machiavellian idea. On the other side of the wall where Zalama was leaning, the baby had been just born, with a high-pitched, irritating cry. Parents happy to see their first child expressed their pride at the birth of their son, and the wife of the leader of the Ozem races said to her son, Welcome to the world, my love. Your father and I are very proud of you. We love you, and we will take care of you with all the affection in the world. Before she could finish speaking, Ozem interrupts her with a smile. That's right, and try to respond to our love with respect and obedience, so that we never fight, said Ozem, completely holding the child in his arms. The party continues and the child falls asleep, but by the time Ozem goes outside to show his youngest son to his friend Zalama, he is not where he should be. Worried, Ozem decides to give his son to his wife and leaves to look for Zalama, but the wife tries to stop him. You can't go. What if something dangerous happens? I don't want my son to grow up without a father, said the wife, quite worried. Ozem just smiled. Then Ozem said, That's exactly why I must go. If it's something dangerous, my good friend could be in trouble, and I wouldn't forgive myself if I wasn't there to help him with everything I have, exclaimed Ozem, leaving in search of his friend Zalama. Looking for him for a few minutes, Ozem finds Zalama gathering his energy alone in a deserted field. Ozem tries to approach, but Zalama shouts, Don't come any closer, my dear friend, said Zalama in a tone of anger and irony, which left Ozem confused with the situation. Zalama then continues his aura as it begins to take on the shape of a dragon. I fought with you. I talked with you. I thought with you. We did everything together, but only you have the credit for our battle, said Zalama, transforming. His aura got a huge shape of a dragon and started to shine, transforming into energy and gaining the shape of a shiny dragon. Zalama continued. So to be fair, if I can't have what you have, I will take everything from you. As soon as Zalama finished saying that, the dragon materialized and Ozem prepared for a difficult attack. Ozem was confused by the whole situation and realized that Zalama had been corrupted by negative feelings and that he was determined to fight his friend, even though that was what Ozem would not like. Ozem wielded his sword and using his energy, the key, Ozem loaded his sword and went after Zalama using a technique, teleportation. Ozem teleported and attacked the back of Zalama's head, who suffered only minor injuries. This worried Ozem, who narrowly dodged a huge blast of ki coming from Zalama. For a moment, Ozem lowered his guard and was attacked by a blow coming from Zalama's tail, which knocked Ozem to the ground with all his might. Ozem falls to the ground badly hurt and thinks to himself, "Damn it, at Zalama's current power level, I won't be able to win," thought Ozem, slightly sad, as he stood up once more wielding his sword. Ozem then pointed his sword at Zalama and shouted with all his might, saying, "I will not let you continue with your evil plans." Ozem shouted angrily, staring at Zalama. What will happen? Who will win this duel? Will Zalama kill Ozem because of his envy? Questions like these will only be answered in the next episode, because today's episode ends here. Hey guys, I know it's sad when today's video unfortunately ends, but don't worry because the next episodes are coming. If you liked it, don't forget to leave your like because it helps us a lot and motivates us to continue with these videos that you like so much. Comment your theories on what might happen in the next episode and share the video with your friends so you can watch it together. That's it. See you guys.